This bald guy is Scott Newsmer, and he's my mathematical collaborator. So all the mistakes in the math are due to Scott. Nancy Burley proposed the original differential allocation hypothesis in 1986, and it was this, that in a monogamous species, an individual that finds herself mated with an attractive male should elevate her level of expenditure to help retain the mate, get him to hang around and help with parental duties. That's the original differential allocation hypothesis. So the focus is on the degree of asymmetry in parental expenditure within a mated pair. That hypothesis has gotten morphed over the years to this one, summarized by Ben Sheldon in 2002. And the general differential allocation hypothesis, thought to be applicable to any interoperous species, is that when the current mate has high breeding value for offspring fitness, then it's adaptive to elevate your expenditure in the offspring produced by that mate. So this is the general differential allocation hypothesis. Increasing levels of expenditure in offspring as a function of sire quality. So the higher the sire quality, the more you should invest in an individual offspring. Sheldon summarized some evidence for the general DA, and here's some evidence in support cited by Sheldon. Sheldon said that these three studies were in support, but if you actually look at them, they're either equivocal or don't offer support. And then he also cited these studies that are evidence against. And then since Sheldon, there have been other studies published of a similar character, manipulating the same sorts of things in males, some evidence for and some evidence against. So the differential allocation hypothesis is a verbal model. It seems plausible. The evidence is mixed, but more importantly, the evidence is incomplete. None of the supporting studies actually measured male breeding value for offspring performance, and none of the studies actually followed the free choices of females in nature. In addition, there is a competing alternative hypothesis called the compensation hypothesis, proposed by Bloom and Guadi in 2004, and this predicts that a female should increase maternal expenditure when she has made an unfortunate mating, so that mothers would compensate for the low breeding value of a mate if they've made a mating that's constrained in some way or non-optimal. And there is some empirical evidence that was reported in this paper. In addition, there's other empirical evidence now, and I'll talk about some of this later on. So, just to reiterate, differential allocation, the mother trades reproductive value for the increase in offspring performance of the offspring of a attractive male. This can be called the Backel-Winner hypothesis. In compensation, this stresses the value of each reproductive opportunity. Increased expenditure when the mate has low breeding value saves the offspring from reproductive death. We call this the rescue hypothesis. Both hypotheses are plausible. They're both supported by some empirical studies, and they make completely opposing predictions. So Scott and I had the goals of expressing these verbal models mathematically and evaluating the conditions under which would win. So specifically, we wanted to look at these life history traits, the mean of the male quality distribution, the variance, how sensitive females were to male quality, the magnitude of the maternal effect, the magnitude of the paternal effect, extrinsic mortality, the survival cost of reproduction, variation in female level of resources, and the maximum level that the female could expend in a reproductive bout. So we assumed an interoperous organism with no age structure. Each female chooses a mate in each breeding opportunity, starts with some amount of their resource, and then we assign her a mate whose value, whose quality, is selected from a Gaussian distribution with a mean mu and a variance sigma squared. So here are the model parameters. There's the mean of the male quality, the variance, the extrinsic mortality, the sire effect on offspring survival, the mother's effect on offspring survival, female sensitivity, male quality, her condition, the cost of reproduction, and the maximum level of investment she can make. And we specifically let all these parameters vary over the maximum range possible, except for these, which go from 0 to where they asymptote in the functions. So after she mates, the female allocates a proportion beta of her finite resource pool to invest in offspring production. And this is what these investment functions look like as we envision them. If she's compensating, then in both cases she's adjusting her level of expenditure simply as a function of her sensitivity to male quality and male quality, just those two things. So depending on the level of sensitivity, compensation functions look like this, differential allocation looks like that. And then the probability of offspring survival is just a function of the magnitude of the paternal effect times the male quality, the magnitude of the maternal effect times the mother's level of investment. And then her fitness increment in any year is simply the probability of surviving to that time period times the probability that the offspring survive. And then after she gets fitness assigned, then she pays the survival cost of reproduction, which is her probability of survival devalued by the amount she's expended times this parameter, which is the cost of reproduction. So we repeat this process of mate assignment, setting the level of reproductive expenditure, calculating the probability of offspring survival, calculating female survival total the next year, until her probability of remaining alive dropped between 1 and 1,000,000, and then calculated her lifetime reproductive success. So just to recap, females assigned to mate. Based on mate quality, she adjusts her level of expenditure. The offspring survive with a probability that's affected by the male's quality and by her expenditure. She pays the survival cost of reproduction, and then that goes on until she dies.